it's Greg here with maritimegardening.com, and it's time for another one of those garden tours brought to you by my sponsors, Bessie Seeds and Savers Gardening Products. I filmed the garden tour yesterday, but this segment of the video, I didn't have my microphone hooked up right, so I'm just slamming this back into the main tour. Anyway, it's second week in November 2021, Nova Scotia, Canada. It's unseasonably warm. We have finally had a frost, so that's happening. But it's not rare to have snow here by now. It's been the warmest fall I can remember in my life, and I'm 49, so things are not as they usually are. But at least for now, that's good for gardening in certain regards. So anyway, with no further ado, let's go have a look at the garden. All right, let's go. We're at the entrance of the garden here, and I'm starting to sort of queue up materials for doing all my fall activity in the garden. I'm a little bit late with everything because basically the fall/winter sort of thing came late. That is to say, we didn't get frost in September like we normally do, and we didn't get frost in October like we always do. We got frost like last week for the first time, right? So all the things I'd normally do, the frost tends to give me that stern reminder to get going and get out there and doing stuff, harvest this, finish that, get this started, because once the frost starts happening, you don't know when the soil's going to freeze up. So I've been just procrastinating and putting that off and doing other stuff. So in fact, I still have some garlic to plant, you see right there. But I got an interesting video idea to make about that, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I got leaves here, and I got about 20 bags of leaves in the driveway that I've just been sort of grabbing on my way home from work, throwing in the trunk, that sort of thing. Anyway, nothing going on out here. Everything that was growing in here is done. In here, I've got these nice leeks that, kind of shading this a bit. Let's see, is that better? Nice leeks here, and they're really... this is my first year growing leeks, and I will grow them every year for as long as I think. I'm going to grow them every year for as long as I'm around. They're you start them from seeds. They seem to be easier to grow than onions. They're tough. I'm just gonna basically, I've told my wife, if you need onions, use these. Now, I mean, leeks don't taste the same as onions, but they're close. They're sort of in between onion and garlic, I would say. I don't know, that might not even be fair. It's hard to say, but they have an interesting taste. It really lends nice character to soups and things like that. But very easy to grow. I mean, all I did was throw the seeds down here, and I thinned them out a little bit midway through the season. That's it, right? And it could be argued I should have thinned them out sooner than that. The thickest ones I've got here are about 1 inch thick, and I know really good ones might be 2 inches thick. So maybe I'll give them some better real estate next year. Put them somewhere, I don't know, I'm gonna play around, but I'm gonna keep planting leeks because I'm really impressed and happy with them. Over here we got our usual perennials. Actually, this bloody dock looking pretty forlorn, but it's a perennial. It'll come back as far as I understand, so we'll see what happens. I mean, there's still leaves and I'm still using it and things, right? You can see there's plenty of, it's almost like all the foliage died and then it started putting out new stuff, right? But this will all die in the winter and then it'll come back. Right, that's what I assume anyway, because it's a perennial as far as I understand. So we'll see what happens. I planted it last summer, like 2020, right? Anyway, this garden here, I planted all the new garlic here. I'm starting to just harvest and use up, change the angle here because of the wind. I'm starting to harvest and use up the kale, so I'm not doing cut and come again harvesting now. Whenever I need a kale, I just cut one off, and I'm in the process of blanching and freezing all my kale as well. I've got videos on that, and if you don't blanch and freeze it and you just freeze it as is, that's fine. I've explained in many videos why I think blanching and freezing is better, so check that out. Over here we got some carrots, and it looks like something's been eating my carrots because the tips of these are off. Now, a week or so ago I had deer in the garden, and before that I had bears in the garden, so this could have been when the deer were here, or could have happened recently. I didn't notice it before, but something's really been going at these. Just eating the leafy part, eating it down to the stem. So that might be a rabbit. I really don't know, right? But certainly, you know, like a rabbit and a deer would, there's wild things that grow that are like carrots, same family, so they'd probably recognize that. Who knows? Anyway, there's some good carrots in here. I mean, I don't know if I can pull this out or not. Let's see if she'll come out if I just pull slow. There we go, that's coming fine. That's a decent carrot, right? That's about 2.5 inches at the crown, right? That's a nice one. Anyway, we got some nice carrots going on here. And that was despite, I mean, if you were been watching my channel all along, I had a really rough start to the year for carrots. This was, I think, my 3rd sowing of carrots. But I still got nice carrots, so don't give up. These beans are all totally done. I don't know what this was, but it's done. Here I got beets that I still haven't. The first night we had our frost, I came out and harvested half of my beets and left the other half because I just ran out of energy. So they're still just chillaxing under here, right? Still good. I mean, these are what they call early wonder, early something, right? There's a sort of average one. Nice looking beet, right? Anyway, these need to be, there's another one there, right? That's the average size. I've got some that are 2, almost 3 times this size in here. I went looking for them. Yeah, this was, I mean, I only do 1 crop of beets. I don't replant because, you know, I find it's very easy to get beets started in I don't know, sort of May. But I find it's very difficult to get things to germinate in July, August. Not because it isn't warm enough, but because it's just so dry. You have to mess it around and watering stuff, and just, you know, it's just easier to sow them in the spring and just leave them in until the fall. And they do get bigger, right? So all I do is just leave them in this climate anywhere I am. It's just easier. So in the spring, leave them in there till October. So unless, you know, there's things attacking them. Over here we got more carrots over here. Let me see if I can pull one. Some of these are enormous. Look at this one. My guess is this one has, you know, arms and legs. I don't know. We'll see if, I don't know if this will come out because it doesn't look like it's just a nice, oh my God. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's you know, basically a straight. Yeah. Whoa. Look at that. Oh my God. It is 1 carrot. No, it's 1 attached to it, but that is enormous. I think I had to put about 30 pounds of force onto that, but that is an enormous, look at my hand. That's an enormous carrot. That might be the biggest carrot I've ever grown. You know, it's not the prettiest looking carrot ever, but I don't care. There's plenty of carrot in that carrot after you remove the weird parts. That's fine. Look at that monster. Anyway, again, this bed was a disaster. I had to replant 3, maybe even a 4th time, right? You know, some of these carrots were planted at some point in July, right? So I'm gonna do a whole video on that, I think. But anyway, I still got carrots, so don't give up, right? Over here we got parsley, still going strong. Parsley's tough, right? You don't have to harvest it all. Just use it as you need it. Of course, I'm using as much as I can right now because we've got it. Why not, right? So basically everything has a sort of, you know, sort of Mediterranean or French or whatever, you know, everything's a little extra fancy these days, adding all the parsley to stuff. Over here we got parsnips, right? The frost is starting to hit the parsnips, so they're going to be harvesting them soon. There's a lot of work to do in terms of getting these things harvested, but you know, parsnips are wonderful, so not bothered by that at all. Let's have a look. Got any size here? I didn't thin these. This was pretty laissez-faire, so some of them are smaller, but some of them are still a good size. Yeah. Oh, this one wants to come out. No, it does not want to come out. Of course it doesn't, because I'm filming. Anyway, there's plenty of parsnips in here need to be harvested. Going down this section of the garden, I've got one of my Siberian kale. This one I moved from over there. right? All the ones along this line here were attacked by something, and the stem stalk just rotted right out of them. I've got 2 left that seem to be okay. One right there, and this guy here seems to be, yeah, he's not gone hollow. So I don't. There was something here that just wrecked them. Didn't bother these ones at all, this variety. But I like this variety eating wise more. They're my own saved seeds. But anyway, this one was totally fine. And I would have moved this here in July, right? So totally fine to thin and move your kale around in July. This is normally a tulip bed. There's an iris plant that I think I'm going to yank out because it just never looks pretty here. I think it's just a waste of space to grow it here, quite frankly. This was carrots, they're done. This was a big bed of garlic and then squash, and all of that's done. There's some Egyptian walking onion that I jammed around the corners. The frost is starting to take its toll on that. I'm using it up as fast as I can, but I actually had some in my omelet this morning. But and stir fries and, you know, anything, basically anything I could put these kind of like little onion greens in, I do. But anyway, they're great. The zucchini's all done. It actually makes a wonderful mulch for its own bed. These strawberries, you know, have the look of plants that are sort of done growing. My rule of thumb for strawberries is when the foliage starts looking awful, that's when it's time to just cover it over with hay. I've got some hay to put over these, so and I'll be doing that in a couple of weeks probably. This is a bed of garlic, and it's well, it's all planted. This would have been planted like first week of October, right before Canadian Thanksgiving. The raspberries that I planted this spring from Bessie Seeds, they're just doing great. Really happy with these, and I'm expecting big things from these next year. It might be the first year since I've had my garden that I could make raspberry jam from my own raspberries. As I had a bit of an experiment here with an ever-bearing variety, and it just didn't work for where I am here. Down here, we got the sunchokes. You can see the sunchokes have fallen over. These were 10 feet high, right? They've fallen over and it's time to harvest them. I'll be doing, people have been asking me about that. You know, when you harvest sunchokes, when you've had a couple good frosts, when you see the ice in the little puddles and stuff like that. And that's where we are now, right? It's time to start harvesting these. I don't know what kind of size we got into these guys. Here's one that fell over, so we might as well have a look. Now these are the ones given me by chokedup.ca. Not bad, right? There's probably more down there. Just have to, oh yeah, oh my goodness, yeah, you can feel them. I have to use a digging tool to get in there, but that's one plant. So I mean, one plant would have started from a piece half this size, okay? But there's a lot in there. These are productive, very productive. And it just seems to just, oh my goodness, there's even even more down there. It seems to just keep going. Oh my God, there's a huge piece in there. Look at that, right? So, and there's even more. Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that alone. I'll have to harvest some of these later and make a video about it. But anyway, these turned out great. Wow. I mean, it's probably, at least a liter's worth, right? The original piece would have been about this big. You get all this out of it, right? And I got videos on how to cook and make these. There's a wonderful tasting food, the sunchoke or Jerusalem artichoke. Anyway, this is the time of year you want to start harvesting them, right? You harvest and replant. So you pull them all out and put one piece back in. You'll have next year. Over here we got my asparagus. I basically take a pair of gardening shears, you know, snip, 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 and just cut them. At this time of year, they're really done growing, right? I just cut them and leave the stalks where they lay, make them their own mulch. Last year I mulched them very heavily, and I think that was a mistake. So this year I'm going to just put like an inch of mulch over them. That's it. I think if when they're crowning, if that's the term, when the tips are coming out of the soil, if they spend too long out of the light, they're unbelievably vulnerable to slugs and snails. And they just eat them as they come up. And the plant wastes a lot of energy feeding slugs and snails. So I think a very thin mulch, or if you put a heavy mulch on, you'd have to get some of it off, you know, end of March sort of thing, right? I think that's the trick. And these are a good size now, so I'm expecting, you know, some lovely asparagus meals next spring. Over here along this side of the garden, we got parsnips, little section of parsnips here. I basically use these posts, right, to delineate sections of the garden. See, post to post I got the leeks, post to post I got the parsnips. Over here, post to post, I've got the Swiss chard, right, which needs to be harvested. If you're growing Swiss chard, once you start getting frost, Swiss chard's tough, but it's not super tough. It'll handle frost, but it will not handle a freeze, right? If you have a night where it's like -5 or whatever, you know, give or take, right? Don't take these numbers to heart, but basically, if I come out here and the, you know, there's serious ice on the pond, okay, in December, the kale's fine, right? Certain plants are fine, but these are just liquefied by a really, you know, hard, you might call it a hard frost or a freeze, right? So yeah, you know, below 0 temperatures, at least in my experience, and I've tried lots of different varieties of Swiss chard, will just kill your Swiss chard. It can only take so much cold. Not as tough as some other things. You can see this top leaf, see how it's folded over, right? Right, as would have been the more exposed leaf. See how this top leaf is folded over? This lower leaf, which is protected from the frost, it got a bit of heat from the ground, is fine, right? So it's time to just start wholesale harvesting the stuff. It's really not going to be growing that much more now because it's getting so cold. That's my take on it anyway. Some of this is Lucillus and some of this is giant Fordhook, in terms of variety. Over here, all the broccoli are done. This mystery plant, which is some kind of collard green, most impressive collard green I've ever seen. Look at it. This is just wonderful, right? So this one here, I wish I knew what this was. You know, be reluctant to try to save seeds from it because it's probably a hybrid of some kind. If this thing wasn't planted, it just grew. It's like a seed from a year before. So my guess is it's flash collard because that's the variety I planted last year. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more going ahead, but I wasn't happy with my cabbage this year. It was unbelievably pest ridden, and I think I might go back to growing collards instead of cabbage. My family, we don't really, they like either. We love collard greens, so a lot of sort of southern cooking type stuff that goes good with nice messy collard greens, you know, bacon, garlic, all that good stuff. So anyway, this one turned out great. I can't wait to eat it. This was squash over here. They're all done. The Egyptian walking onions have just gone into, you know, crazy mode. So this is clearly going to stay an Egyptian walking onion garden for a while. Once everything gets sort of, you know, frozen and destroyed, I'll put a layer of mulch over that, and hopefully that'll suppress weeds next spring, but it'll still allow the Egyptian walking onions to get through. They had no problem getting through a couple inches of mulch last spring. I had all these plans to sort of replant and reorganize and do all this stuff, and I didn't do any of it. I just let it go. And I mean, that's part of the joy of growing Egyptian walking onions. You can be as lazy as can be and totally get away with it. Onions here are all done. A little bit of weeding needs to be done. This is parsnips. You can see they're all starting to look sort of destroyed, but that's usually a sign that they're ready. Here's one. You can sort of give you a sense of the crown. Don't want to try to pull it out, but it's ready to start harvesting these because you've had some frost. There's a crown, right? About 2 inches across. That's, you know, a good, not an amazing parsnip. A 4-incher to me is an amazing parsnip. 2 inches is good, 1 inch is acceptable, right? 3 inches is great. Lovely kale garden. Remember, this kale here was moved, right, from the other one. These were just the ones that were thin. I just basically pulled them out of the ground, stuck them in the ground over here. And look at them now. I mean, this just looks amazing. That's just 2 rows of kale in a 4x8 garden, right? Don't overplant your kale. These 2 rows, Each kale is about 16 inches apart, right? Or that'd be like 35 centimeters or 37 centimeters. People are always getting on my case for using metric. You know, the majority of the world is metric, so I use both. In Canada, we use both anyway. For how Canadian of us, we don't want to offend anyone, so we use both. Anyway, the country was just transitioning from being imperial to metric around the time when I was born in the early 70s. So a lot of things here are in metric, but we also have some things that, like if you're on a construction site, everybody works in imperial, right? Inches and that sort of thing, inches and feet. But anywhere else, it really depends. It's half of 6 of 1. You go to the grocery store, everything might be in kilograms or milliliters, or it's in pounds. And usually in the store, the packaging will have everything in metric, but the big sign that's like on the side of the highway saying chicken for $2.99 a pound or whatever, it'll always be in pounds. So it's interesting, right? But anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. This beet garden was all pulled. I got a good amount of beets. I would say, like imagine a 5-gallon bucket. I filled it with beets, and some of them were big, right? And this garden was very weedy, and it didn't matter. I meant to make a video about it, and I had to. You can see that was the night when there's a couple. Look at that. There's still some I didn't see growing in the grass there. A number of them I didn't even notice. There's another one just growing in with a clump of grass. Look at that. That's like half a meal. Anyway, I've never seen a plant not bothered by weeds like a beet. As long as the beet foliage is higher than the weed foliage, they seem to have no problem getting what they need and growing really well. Right, so these ones would be smaller compared to some of the other ones I got. Right, some of them were, you know, maybe these were the long ones. So some of them were almost a foot long, maybe 2 or 3 inches wide. Not all of them, but the biggest ones, right? The monsters. And then, you know, the majority of them might have been 6 inches long and 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide, right? We just had some with supper last night. These are wonderful beets, right? I grow the fat round ones, and I grow these long skinny ones. These are much easier to peel and stuff, that's for sure. This tomato garden was a bit of a disappointment. I don't know. I think I'm going to reorganize. I can't really get at it because the fence is there. I can only get at one side and it's so long. I'm going to have to turn this into a keyhole garden. The wood's all rotten anyway, so it needs to be sort of redone. That's just one more thing to do in November, December before things freeze. But I'm going to make this into a keyhole garden. Maybe I'll do a whole video explaining what a keyhole garden is. But, and I don't know what I'm going to plant here. Probably squash, I think, for next year. Because this garden hasn't had squash in it for a while, or maybe ever. And it's a good spot because I can train them up the fence and stuff. And they won't attract generally speaking, I find the wild animals don't tend to be interested in that. You look down along the side of the fence, you can see all the brush is pushed down. That's not because I went through with a weed whacker, right? This is a game trail, right? Deer, bears, all kinds of things walk along here. If I did a really close look and walk along here, I'd find deer scat, bear scat, right? They're around. You can see here there's a trail. So it's really flattened out here. It's almost like they were sleeping here. I mean, it's just completely, everything's gone, right? And you can see like a bit of a V down through the brush. So they must go down that way. There's a couple of ways they go down the hill, but this must be one of the ways they like to go. A little observation, if you see I got sand in my pathways, and then there's this beautiful looking, you know, soil here, right? That is the activity of a mole, right? That's mole work. Okay. And they're tiny little animals, right? I could probably, you know, easily hold 3 of them in one hand, right? They're small. But they move that sort of dirt. That's excellent soil, so it's worth throwing back into your garden, right? That's the stuff that's underneath my sand here. Underneath the sand, there's excellent soil. You know, really, if I had to produced, if I had to double my food production, I'd remove all these boxes and just till the sand into the, I don't till, I'm a no-till gardener, but you know, if I was in an emergency situation, I would imagine, you know, anything that starts growing in the walkways grows really well, because there's about 5 inches of sand, and underneath that is, these walkways were mulched with wood chips for years, and before that the walkways, you know, were this stuff. So the end result is just extraordinary soil under the walkways. It's kind of a shame, right? I found using the sand suppresses weeds, but it's not foolproof, right? I mean, this is a whole nother video, but I'm getting off on totally getting off on a tangent here. But in terms of weed suppression, the wood chips are just about the best, but you have to replenish them every year. The sand you don't have to replenish every year, but it is definitely not, well, it is weed proof. I mean, it's about as good as the wood chips, or let's say 80% is good, right? But it doesn't keep breaking down. You know, every year when you add the sand, you know, the first year I put sand on here, I had to add another whole dump truck load the second year, and then the year after that, I waited. Well, this is the year after that. I didn't do anything this year, and I got a few weeds, but still, you can tell. I mean, I'm not out here weeding this, right? I had a magazine come to do a photo shoot here, and I did some weeding that week, so things would look kind of nice. That's the only weeding I did in my walkways all summer long, all season long, right? And I have my kids helping me, so I don't have to do all of it. But yeah, I spent probably like 8 hours weeding my walkway this summer, mainly because I had someone coming to shoot a magazine and I wanted it to look you know, pretty good. It wasn't perfect, it's never gonna be perfect, but anyway, last thing I got to show you here, this is that garden that was unproductive with beans. I still haven't put any manure or seaweed or anything on it, just haven't gotten around to it. I had really good, I think I'm going to plant garlic in this bed. I had really good cabbage this year, but they are just riddled with pests. You can see where they just bored the way right in. And if I split this open, you know, like to use one of these in my cooking, I have to spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with pests. So if I was going to grow cabbage again, I'd probably hit them with like that Safer Zendol, or put slug bait down. I don't know what I'd have to do, but I would have to hit these with something like once a week, just to mitigate the pest damage that these, I don't normally grow cabbage. I normally grow collard greens and kale in terms of that family. And these are not nearly as pest proof as those other things, at least this variety. I can't remember what the variety was called, but they're good tasting once you know, deal with all the pests, right? Anyways, grew well, definitely grew well. These aren't, you know, country fair winners, but the pests definitely had a field day with them, for sure. And that's about everything that's left in the garden. Everything else has stopped. The look at this over here. I got an asparagus growing here that was never planted here. Just happened. But anyway, the what's this, lovage? I moved my lovage. Last year it was about 6 feet high, and this year this is about as big as it got, you know, a foot high, as I moved it. So if you're thinking of moving your lovage, be prepared for you know, an unimpressive year, but it'll come back from that. It'll be better next year, and better the year after that, and before I know it, it'll be back to being 6 feet high. Except it'll be 6 feet high here at the far north end of my garden, and not casting shade, because it used to be right next to that apple tree, and it was in front of the apple tree, and it would shade the whole it just cast a huge amount of shade, right? And it would affect the way the wind blows through the apple tree, and it would make it a little more pest prone, you know, etc., 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 right? So it was just the wrong place for it over there. So that's what you got to do. You got to move stuff when it's in the wrong place. Plant, you know, don't spend all of your time trying to figure out where the perfect place is for things to grow. You know, if it's your first or second year as a gardener, just plant. Spend your winter reading, come up with a plan, and plant, and don't think about it. And then as you see things happening over the course of the gardening season, make a few notes and say, okay, this needs to move, this needs to be moved, right? And just adjust things and move things around over time. And eventually your garden will be crazy productive. You just learn from your mistakes, right? If you don't start doing it, you will have no mistakes to learn from, right? So learning starts with trying and messing up and just growing from that experience, right? 2, 1. Anyway, that's where we are. Second week in November 2021, Nova Scotia, Canada. You know, still lots going on in the garden. A lot of work to do yet. Get things ready before things freeze up. But you know, not an unproductive season. A heck of a season. Some weird sort of ups and downs this year, but all positive in general. You know, I want to thank you for watching and staying with me all these years. And I know I haven't been making the kind of videos that you like lately. I've been sort of sloughing off on the out in the garden doing stuff in the garden videos. You're gonna have more of those coming along soon. I've shot some video. I just gotta get around to you know, editing and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot to do out here, and I've had a few days off, so I've been filming. So stay tuned, and the videos you like with me out in the garden digging and doing stuff, they're coming soon. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Don't forget to click the bell, and until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, if you want to help support my podcast and my YouTube channel, check out my sponsors, Vessi Seeds and Safer's Gardening Products. For Vessi's, go to their website, vessis.com, use my coupon code GAVS21, and you'll get free shipping as long as there's a pack of seeds in your order and you don't have an oversized item in your order. Just check out the description. The details are in the description box of this video. If you want to buy stuff from Safer's Gardening Products, you can buy all the things I use from Vessi Seeds and you'll get free shipping that way. They sell BTK, the Slug and Snail Killer, and the End All that I use. Just check out the tools and accessories link on their website. But you can also, if you're in Canada, you can buy Safer's Gardening Products from woodstreambrands.ca. If you have an order over $69, you'll get free shipping on that. They got a wide range of products, goes well beyond the 3 things I use. I only buy things for the problems I have, right? So I don't, but they've got all kinds of products for beetles and things like that. If you're in the US, go to saferbrand.com and buy your stuff there. That's the US, you know, if you're in US, buy from that website, order online. They offer free shipping on all orders over $45. I assume that's $45 US. So yeah, if you want to help support the channel and the podcast, they sell something you need, buy it from them. That'll help support everything I'm doing here. Thanks a lot.